The Pale Door is an outlaw horror movie. The movie is about these two brothers that survived some horrific shit when they were younger. Basically, their farm was attacked, their parents were murdered, and the older brother has basically raised the younger one since they were little. Well, unfortunately, the older brother is a leader of these outlaws and they're pretty fiendish, while the younger brother is just a straight and arrow guy. He never got into basically the rough side of life. And the older brother and his merry men, his little outlaw group, are kinda on a break right now. They're in between jobs, so they go to visit the younger brother. Well, during this, one of the crewmates of the outlaws ends up getting murdered in a good old fashioned standoff. He loses. And yeah, they need a replacement. And who better to replace a veteran than someone who has never done a heist before? Because that is the job, a heist, as they got info on this train carrying this potential huge load. Hee hee. So they asked the younger brother if he wants to be a part of the outlaws for this job. Yeah, so they agreed to it for some reason, and here we are. We're at the train, we're robbing it, everything's going good until they get to the treasure. And the treasure isn't what they thought it was supposed to be, as the only reason they thought it was going to be this big load was it had extra security for some reason, but instead it is this single treasure box and it's moving. So the outlaws are like, what? They open it, and yes, this little girl who is completely shackled up with a muzzle on appears out of this treasure box. And they're like, okay, well, obviously someone's selling this little girl. We should continue to sell the little girl and get the money. Which they probably should do. But nonetheless, one of them's like, yeah, we should definitely do that, because why would they shackle up a little girl and lock her in a treasure box unless she's dangerous? And obviously, the dude who's new, the younger brother, who is super innocent's like, no, we have to save her. And the little girl's like, well, if you save me, you will be rewarded handsomely where I live. So they take her to where she lives. And yeah, that's about where I'm going to end the recap, because past that is spoilers. So yeah, I'll get into all that in the review. So my review to The Pale Door, and even though I wouldn't necessarily, this is definitely like the Wild Wild West era, but it didn't really have the Wild Wild West feel, as just like it wasn't that grainy, sandy feeling. They were more in like luscious, grassy, wooden area. So I feel like that was the only difference on how it felt. But when I really go to think about it, there's not really too many Wild Wild West horror movies. I mean, you have like some classic Wild Wild West movies, but in the horror genre, you don't see that too often. And honestly, this may just be the first review I've done, and like maybe my second ever Wild Wild West horror movie. So it was insanely refreshing. It felt unique, and I just love the era of like the Wild Wild West. Like, it just kind of, the concept too is like, it's already crazy watching like horror movies in like the 80s and shit. It's like, man, they really didn't have technology. And it's like, well, back then they really didn't have technology. So like when shit hits the fan, you know, what are you gonna call? Ghostbusters? But I'm sorry. But nonetheless, this movie had crazy production. The acting was insanely good. Some of the direction and lighting was insanely good. The set play was insanely good. Honestly, there was only a couple things wrong with this movie, and one of them was like when people would get shot, it didn't look all that good. But then there's other scenes where people got shot and it looked insanely good. So that was weird. And then it was this one part kind of in the middle. I feel like they were kind of going like more of a lighter comedy route in the writing when shit was hitting the fan. Like there was a couple just unnecessary jokes. I think that kind of threw me off. I'm like, because the whole movie wasn't like that, so when they did it, it just threw me off, you know? Probably should have scrapped that, but nonetheless, this movie is just insanely good, honestly. So, spoilers is when they end up, so yeah, big spoilers, this is continuation of the recap. When they end up getting the little girl, she's not even that little, she's probably like 15 plus, getting her to where she lives is like this brothel, and basically all the dudes are getting laid. Well, the main lady's talking to the innocent boy and she's finding more out about him, and she's getting giddy because like he's everything they want. Like he's like, yeah, I'm a gay virgin and I ain't killed nobody. And in that day and age, not killing anybody and being a virgin was like insanely rare. So they need her blood. I mean, not her, but his blood. And the reason they need his blood is because they're all like these witches. They're like hags. They're all people who were burned at the stake and people resurrected them. Or witches resurrected them. I'm not really too certain. This is just what I got from context and just visuals. But yeah, so when they're all like fucking these ladies, they transform back into their original burnt selves, and it's just chaos, and a lot of people die, and they're just bad. They're like bad. Because you gotta also think, like, these are the dudes that rescued the daughter, you know. She was about to definitely get murdered. So that's kind of fucked up. This was their reward. And they're basically like, look, we need the virgin boy. Give us him and everybody could survive. And it kind of plays out that way with a crazy ending. The big brother gets shot. So it's a lot of sacrifice. And honestly, some really good deaths. The practical effects were pretty good. Really just a couple little minor things in this movie. But honestly, I should probably rewatch it because I was kind of sleepy. And I turned it off and then turned it back on the next day. So that's just a little thing. Himalama Humalama. And yeah, just the Wild Wild West horror movie that was pretty good and pretty messed up. Honestly, all in all, just an excellent movie. Yes, so my recommendation for The Pale Door, and honestly, man, I'm probably going to say this is highly recommended. This was just a excellent film, entertaining, something different, really no flaws, and like everything, the two things I kind of hated on, like, honestly, that could be interpreted different. Like, somebody might have liked those jokes. And honestly, I just need to rewatch it. Them bullet shots did look a kind of iffy in the beginning. And then there was just other parts where it was insanely good. I don't know. Maybe it was just like saving some money shit. They're like, oh, well, this doesn't look too different than like if we had it look a little better, but it saves us a bunch of money, you know what I'm saying? So maybe having it look a little shittier saved them a bunch of money on effects. Who knows? Nonetheless, that's just my little nitpicking. Movie was excellent. I'd highly recommend this, honestly. It was insanely good. Yep. And my next video isn't probably going to be a review, so stay tuned for that because, yep, it's something different. And it's basically an explanation about my reviews and what I'm doing in them, just to give people an idea. I've never really done that.